This video is going to focus on writing algebraic expressions. The goal is I can translate verbal phrases into algebraic expressions. Let's first start with the review exercises. Go ahead and solve those first on your own and pause the video, and then when you're done, go ahead and play the video to check your answers. The directions state simplify each expression. So number 1, we have -1 to the third power, which means -1 times a -1 times a -1. -1 times a -1 is a positive 1, and a positive 1 times a -1 is equal to a -1. Number 2, we have -2 times a -2 times a -2 times a -2. -2 times a -2 is 4, and -2 times a -2 is 4, and 4 times 4 is 16. And number 3, -5 squared. -5 times a -5, which is equal to a positive 25. Now let's focus on writing these algebraic expressions. Underneath the examples for each of our operations, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing, underneath each of those symbols, I wrote different words that can mean adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. So for adding, you could use the word plus, add, increased by, sum, total, more than. For subtraction, you could use the word minus, subtract, decreased by, difference, less than, subtract it from, fewer than. Now, the reason why I put a black box around the 3 phrases less than, subtract it from, and fewer than is when you write these algebraic expressions using these 3 phrases, you actually write them backwards from how they look in the actual equation. We'll talk about that a little bit later. For multiplication, we can use the word times, multiply, product, of, twice, which means multiply by 2. And for division, we have the words divide and quotient. Now these are some of the words, the key words that they might use. There also can be other words that may be missing from this list, but these are most of the key words that you will see. Let's try some problems now. So it says directions, write each algebraic expression. So we have for number 1, 6 less than x. So earlier, if we go back to our list, I have less than in that black box, which means that we're going to write it backwards from how it's written in the expression. So we're going to use the subtraction symbol, and it's 6 less than x, so we want to write it backwards from how it looks. So this is really going to be x, the subtraction sign, and 6. Number 2, the product of 3 and x. So our key term here is product. If we look back at our chart, product means multiplication. So we're going to do 3 times x, which we're just going to write as 3x. Number 3, a number increased by 5. If we look back at our chart, increased by is used for addition. So we're going to do x plus 5. And number 4, the quotient of a number and 2. Our key phrase here is the word quotient. Let's look back at our table. Quotient means division. So the quotient of a number and 2 is n divided by 2, or you can write it as n over 2, which also means n divided by 2.